Please, go out with me on the premise of marrying me. Paul, whom I had met through a friend's introduction, asked me out on a date. He, who is 3 years younger than me, told me that he had fallen in love with me at first sight. Considering my age and the fact that I had been contemplating marriage, I decided to accept his offer. We eventually got married a year later. My name is Michelle. I'm 34 years old and I work for an international corporation. I've always dreamed of living abroad. My husband Paul, despite being younger, is a natural-born leader and can be described as the dominant one in our relationship. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say he's the head of the household, but I didn't mind it. Having lived alone for a long time, I was accustomed to taking care of household chores, and I even enjoyed cooking. Paul rarely helped out, but I never found chores burdensome. On the other hand, Paul always took the lead when we went out together, allowing me to simply enjoy myself without having to worry about anything. This felt like a good balance between us. However, all of this started to change when my mother passed away. While I was at work, I received a call from my father informing me that my mother's chronic illness had worsened, and she had collapsed. I immediately boarded the train and arrived at the hospital in about 2 hours, where I bid a final farewell to my mother. I decided to stay with my father to prepare for my mother's funeral. When I contacted Paul, he said that he couldn't leave work at short notice. He ended up not coming to the wake. He did make it to the funeral, but it seemed that he hadn't made any preparations for mourning attire. I had to hastily arrange a rental outfit for him. He complained incessantly, saying that I should have prepared everything from the beginning. Between my sorrow and being busy, I didn't have the capacity to deal with Paul, so I let his complaints slide. But apparently he didn't appreciate that, as he was in a foul mood throughout. Ever since then, it feels like our marital arguments have increased. Well, after being married for 3 years, I think it's normal to have some quarrels. But even so, Paul has been picking fights rather aggressively recently. With his persistent domineering attitude, he often dictated what I should do and take care of. I got fed up and even tried refusing a few times. But since he didn't know how things were organized inside the house, even simple tasks like preparing for his own business trips would take a long time. Moreover, he would complain while bustling around the house, making an even bigger mess. In the end, I realized it's easier if I just do it myself. I wasn't being completely obedient. I took care of certain things to save myself the trouble. Next week is the gathering for my mom's first death anniversary. I'm going to start preparing for us to join, okay? When I said that, Paul responded grumpily. I have an important meeting that day. What should I do? I've mentioned this gathering well in advance. How could he suddenly say something like that? What, you're not going? Paul responded with a heavy sigh. It's not that, but it'll be tough to delegate everything to my juniors, you know? He seems happy about his recent promotion and constantly talks to me about his junior team members at every opportunity. I felt like sighing right back at him. Please plan for it, okay? I emphasized. It was the day before my mother's first death anniversary gathering. When I got home from work, Paul was sulking and drinking beer in the living room. I'm sorry I'm late. I had to work overtime. I'm sure he's in a bad mood because I came home late, causing a delay in dinner preparation. I've been waiting here for an hour, just as I thought. But it's just 1 hour, isn't it? If he couldn't prepare his own dinner, he could have gone out to buy something. I did let him know what time I'd be home, so he could have taken some initiative and done things on his own. Suppressing the urge to say all that, I handed him a takeout box. I thought it'd take too long if I cooked, so I picked this up on my way home instead. In response, Paul slammed a glass filled with beer onto the table. Takeout again? Aren't you slacking off a bit too much lately? Again? The last time I brought home takeout was about 2 weeks ago. Sure, I've been busy lately, and maybe I haven't been cooking a feast every day. Nevertheless, I'm mindful of maintaining a balanced nutritional intake and rarely rely on prepackaged items. So I don't think I deserve that kind of criticism. As I was considering whether to retort or not, Paul, misunderstanding something, decided to pour salt in the wound. Can't say anything because it's true, huh? Do your chores properly. You've been coming home late lately, saying you're working overtime. You're probably just out having an affair, Paul shouted. His words sparked a flare of resentment that had been building in me. Enough is enough. If you know I'm working late, the least you can do is prepare dinner for us. It's fine if you can't cook. Picking up some takeout isn't too hard to do, is it? I always make sure to inform you when I'm going to be late, and even with the busyness, I take care of all our household chores. There's no need for that kind of tone. Paul gave me a glare. Huh? You're 3 years older than me, you know. I could have married a woman in her 20s, but I chose an older woman. Show some gratitude and do as I say. There's no one else who would want you, so you'd be in trouble if I were to leave you, wouldn't you? Did he really just say that? I was ticked off and couldn't hold back any longer. Then you should have married a younger woman. When we started dating and before we got married, didn't I ask if you were okay with me being older? You said it was okay, and that's why we got married. Even without you, I could have managed my life. Paul laughed mockingly at my words. Whatever. Let's get a divorce. With that, Paul took his beer and the takeout box and retreated to his room. We've had our share of arguments, but this was a first. I was done with him. I decided to eat my takeout dinner to calm my nerves. He must have been irritated because he was hungry. That's what I thought as I filled my stomach, but I couldn't settle down after all. I couldn't believe this was happening the day before my mother's first death anniversary. After some time had passed, I called out to Paul from outside his room. We need to leave by 8 a.m. tomorrow, so I'll wake you up around 7. There was no response, but I could sense that he was awake, so he must have heard me. With those words spoken, I went to sleep. The next morning when I woke up early, Paul was already gone. The bags I had prepared were still in the room. It didn't seem like he headed to the gathering without me. Where did he disappear? I called his cell, but there was no answer. There was no response to my texts either. Since there was no other choice, I left a voicemail message and started preparing to head out on my own. I got a hold of Paul while I was waiting for the train at the station. I have to go to my meeting. I can't leave it to my juniors after all. When I answered the phone and heard only that, I panicked. Wait, what? Hold on! Despite my words, my voice was drowned out by the noise of the train, and the call ended. Overwhelmed by an indescribable mix of anger and resignation, I found myself in a state of stunned bewilderment. Before I could think further, the train arrived. Carrying unnecessary luggage for two, I boarded the train alone. When I arrived at my father's house, my father asked anxiously, "Where's Paul?" My father had been depressed since my mother's passing, and I didn't want to worry him further. I took a deep breath, managed to put on a smile, and said, "Sorry, he got called into an important meeting. He was supposed to come here, but he recently got a promotion, and it sounded like an important meeting, so I told him he should prioritize that." My father nodded, understanding the situation. "I see. He's working hard. It's a shame I couldn't see him, but your mother would understand. Tell him he's always welcome to visit." Those words stung a little, but I managed to keep up my smile. Throughout the day, there was no contact from Paul, and the night grew late without me reaching out to him either. I planned to stay the night and return home the next day. That was originally planned, so I didn't see an issue with not contacting Paul. Still, it felt like I was acting childish. Maybe I should cook him some hamburger tomorrow. His favorite dish. With that thought in mind, I went to sleep. The next day, I left my father's house and arrived at home around noon. I wanted to drop my bags off before going grocery shopping. I walked into our living room. As expected, Paul had left dirty laundry sitting around. I sighed at the thought that he still didn't know how to use the washing machine, and dumped the left-behind laundry in the washer with my own laundry. Taking a break and returning to the living room, I noticed something on the table. When I got closer, I couldn't believe my eyes. There were divorce papers, which he had already signed. Why? I stared at the divorce papers, bewildered. Is this his way of asking for a divorce? I pulled out my cell phone from my bag. It should be his lunch break around this time. I wasn't sure if Paul would pick up, but surprisingly, he did as soon as I called. Paul? This divorce paper. What's this about? On the other end of the line, Paul laughed. What do you mean, what's this about? It's exactly as it looks. I don't need an older wife who isn't going to do household chores. That's why I decided I want a divorce. If I break up with you, I can even remarry a younger woman. At the end of the day, a wife is like a status symbol, right? I can't brag about you because you're older. It's quite challenging when my team members ask me about you, and evading the topic is no easy task. I was at a loss for words. I had nothing to say. If you don't want a divorce, then start doing your chores properly. I'm coming home as usual today, so don't forget to get some beer, alright? If you don't like that, take the divorce papers to the family court. It's up to you. With that, he hung up. The call ended without me getting a word in. I guess this is what it feels like to be too shocked to speak. Paul probably thought that if he said that, I would comply. I only did the chores because I didn't like to ask or beg him to do things. He must have thought all this time that I did it because I didn't want him to leave me. He must have thought I wouldn't stand up to him because he's the dominant one. Being married to a younger husband is sometimes envied, but really, there's nothing notable about it. I often found myself emphasizing the fact that my husband is younger. He's average in looks, average in personality, and earns an average income. There's nothing unique about him, so saying he's younger was just convenient. When we got married, I was worried about the age difference. But now we're both in our 30s, and he's only 3 years younger. If there was a decade or so between us, I might feel more affectionate. But it feels bad to be continuously called an older wife when we're practically the same age. I grabbed my bag and headed straight to the family court. When I submitted the divorce papers, I felt a sense of relief. I thought we were getting along fairly well, but that's over now. I can live without Paul. With that thought in mind, I felt a sudden sense of lightness, prompting me to contact my boss and request a few days of paid leave. Thankfully, the busy season at work had just ended, so he allowed me to take about a week off. Since I'm divorced now, I needed to sort out my belongings. I didn't have much stuff to begin with, so cleaning up was a breeze. I took the bigger items to a storage unit, packed my essentials and clothes in the car, and on a whim, I decided to head to a hot spring resort. It seemed to be the off-season for hotels, too, so I was able to book a stay at a cheap rate on the spot. I felt the excitement as I drove. As I enjoyed the hot springs and relaxed in my room, my phone rang. Michelle! I told you to get beer, didn't I? Where the hell are you? It's Paul's usual time to come home. I remembered hearing those words, and found it amusing. I'm at a hot spring resort right now. What? A hot spring resort? Why? What's going on? Didn't you say to file the divorce papers if I didn't agree with you? The flustered image of my ex-husband surfaced in my mind, and my laughter intensified. Hold on. Did you actually file it? Of course I did. Why? Why, you ask? It was your idea, Paul. Have you forgotten what you just said a few hours ago? Then I heard his clearly perturbed voice. Hey, you're joking, right? When you say hot spring resort, did you mean you went to some spa nearby? If that's the case, I'll pick up dinner, so just hurry back home. I couldn't stop laughing at the sudden, seemingly affectionate tone as he was proclaiming to be a caring husband. It was probably about an hour and a half of driving. There's even an outdoor natural hot spring. It's quite comfortable. I wonder if it will rain cats and dogs tomorrow since you're going out to buy your own dinner. I've already taken my belongings out so that you won't have to worry about me coming back. Please, take care of yourself. Paul was pleading desperately for me to return. But of course, I had no intention of going back. You're the one who prepared the divorce papers in the first place. Have you forgotten? It was blatantly obvious that you were using the threat of divorce to control me. I told you I could live without you. Now that you've divorced your older wife, you can go find a younger one. Whether you can or not, I don't know. Paul was completely silent. It might be none of my business, but you should probably consider moving out of that apartment too. Finally, Paul found his voice again. Why should I? His voice was barely a murmur. Think about your income. You'll go bankrupt soon if you keep living there. You can't clean, do laundry, cook. You'll have to use a housekeeping service and eat out, right? That costs money. It would be a problem if most of your salary went into rent. You thought you were the one providing for me, but my salary is actually almost double yours. You were never providing for me. If anything, it was the other way around. Also, you were acting all confident just because one junior came alone. But did you know that I have multiple juniors working under me, and even more juniors working under them? I don't usually talk about work because Paul gets moody, but I outranked him in both position and salary. You'd think he'd notice after living together, but it seemed like he was finding out for the first time. Perhaps Paul, being the dominant and proud man he is, kept his ego intact by looking down on me. Now that he can't look down on me, he must be feeling defeated. I've shattered his pride as payback for all these years. The reason I took care of household chores without complaining, even though you acted like a domineering husband at times, was partly because you were younger, and I cut you some slack, and partly because it was too much hassle to ask you for anything. It's not because I needed you to stay with me. I was just taking care of your needs while I was at it with my own chores. So when you said, do the chores or we divorce, of course I chose divorce. We're strangers now. Goodbye then. I said all I wanted to say and hung up. Feeling refreshed, I enjoyed the hotel's food. Afterwards, as expected, Paul reached out for reconciliation, but I told him with a smile, I'm older than you. I'm sure you don't want me back. Presumably, he wasn't successful with younger women. Eventually, Paul gave up and moved out of the apartment. I hired a lawyer for the division of assets, demanding more to compensate for the burden of household chores that had been imposed on me until now. Paul, being cheap, didn't hire a lawyer, and so I had the upper hand with my lawyer. We were able to reach an agreement with favorable conditions for me. By the way, it seems that Paul's only junior had been complaining to others about how poor his leadership was, to the point that he couldn't even consider him a boss. Paul overheard this, and they are currently in the midst of a dispute. He should have known how important it is to take care of your own junior. As for me, I had been offered a position at our overseas headquarters. I had been declining due to the current circumstances and out of consideration for Paul, but I finally decided to take on the opportunity. I'm currently preparing for my transition. I've been causing my father some worry, but we've started practicing video calls so we can keep in touch when I'm abroad. I am content because I'll be able to pursue the job that I have been dreaming of since I was a child. It's time to give it my all.